My name is Sebastian Quesada. I'm a composer. I'm from Costa Rica, but I'm based in East Lansing in Michigan. And well, right now, actually, I'm in Costa Rica visiting my family in the summer. And I will be back in Michigan in a couple of weeks. The piece is inspired by this idea of rituals, right? Rituals basically implies a process of transformation in which symbolically there is a destruction of a previous state to create a renewed state. So a ritual basically is the threshold that announces where and when the first state ends and the second one begins in a certain way. I find fascinating that there are so many things in our life that with those lenses are determined by rituals. You can consider ritual, for example, a birthday. A graduation is a ritual. Getting married is a ritual too. Or also impactful experiences, personal experience, they could be considered in a certain way rituals. I'm talking about depression, for example, or falling in love, because there's a point of change, there's a point of transformation before and after that event, that impactful event. So I try to use that idea for the piece to organize the piece in a certain way, because the piece for the project is a 3-movement piece. Each movement represents one part of the process: the previous state, the threshold or the ritual, and the renewed state. The third movement is the piece that Soul Ensemble will be played, which is when this transformation basically is complete. I started the piece first. I started with some ideas, just to sketch some ideas, to write especially the main themes. Initially, it was a 1-movement piece without the second movement. So basically the first movement and the third movement were connected. But the thing is, I use the same melody for both movements, only with variety in a certain way. So when I was playing with it, when I was hearing to it, it was interesting to hear how this melody, this main melody, was transformed in that way from this first movement. I mean, what is now the first movement of this first part of the piece to this later section of the piece. I started to think about that. Why is that? Why is this transformation, or how this transformation came about? And I started to think what things in our life cause this kind of transformation. Usually when I write music, I try to relate like the music that I have with, I don't know, with my life in general, with society, with the things I see, with the things I've experienced, with things I read, with conversation I have. And at that time, I remember to read something about rituals in I don't remember, it was a journal. Exactly, I don't remember what was it, an article, I don't remember. But for some reason, I started I started to realize, okay, that's it. That's the thing that is happening in the piece. It's something that I can use for the piece. So it's when I decided just to divide the piece in like in movement, and to include a second movement. That the second movement is the ritual, is the music that creates the change from one state to the other. I think because the third movement is my favorite. I really enjoy that movement, and it speaks to me in a certain way. At the end, I believe it's a kind of celebration from this transformation, right? And I enjoy that. I like that I like the energy. I like that it's a very colorful. It's very colorful music. It blends several several things. It blends Latin American rhythms and with like lyrical melodies, and it's very danceable in many ways. All the time that I listen to it, it makes me move certain way, and I like that in music. I enjoy that music. For for me, the best music or the music that I most enjoy, I need to move to enjoy it, the music in that way, and
Yeah.
that happened with that movement. That happened with that movement. So I decided to submit that movement there, and yeah, fortunately, it was selected. One of the things uh, that I did first with that piece was precisely that, to use Latin American rhythms. Uh, my previous pieces, I didn't use that a lot. Basically, I didn't use them,
Hmm.
and I discovered that I enjoyed that. I enjoyed this kind of music. I enjoyed this kind of elements, and since then I started to include more of that in my music. I realized that yeah, it's part of my culture. It's part of who I am. I grew up with this kind of music, so it felt more natural for me to go in that direction. And
Hmm.
it was something that I discovered basically with that piece. I discovered that, yeah, I didn't know why I didn't use that before, but now I'm going to use them. And then, yeah, since then, not all the pieces I've written since then, but a lot of the pieces include certain elements of Latin American music. So rhythms or some melodies, or some harmonies, or even some ideas behind that. So yeah, it was a realization in many ways. You grew up in an environment, you grew up in a culture, is what you know like better, or are more familiar to, and it's to be honest to yourself, you know. Usually to create this personal compositional voice, that's the direction you have to take. You need to accept yourself, you need to accept who you are, where you come from, and from there like propose your own ideas, you know, and contribute with that into your own music. I try to listen everything, absolutely everything. I think I have an I have a favorite piece every month. It's but there are composers I think that I always come back a certain way just to listen to them. Uh, Composers like well, I'm a fan of John Adams' music. I like Eddie Mora's music, Roberto Sierra's music. If we go to the to composer from the different periods, I like Prokofiev. I love Beethoven too. But I also listen to I love Snarky Poppy, for example. I love Pat Matini.
Yeah.
I love Ruben Blades. So there's a lot of things that is there are there that I try to listen. I try to listen music every day. It's part of I think part of being a musician is important to do that. And something that I usually try to do is to listen to music that I don't know. To listen
Mm.
that is the first time I listen to it, especially new music. So it's something that I enjoy that, and I've discovered some jewels in there, some very good music in there. So it's a practice that I try to do every day, just at least to listen one new piece or one new album sometimes a day. It happened to me, for example, when I was a music student. I mean, first of all, I didn't have time to listen to all the music that I wanted. There were a lot of things going on. At least for me, I realized when I was a student that I forgot about that. I forgot about listening to music. That it was something that in one period of my life I truly enjoy that, to do that, to just to listen as much music as I could. But for some reason, I didn't do that anymore, and it was something missing, something that it's. I mean, we became musicians basically from that, from not only from playing music, but from listening to music. So it's good to always to come back to your roots, or to the thing that you love, the thing that made you take that decision, took that decision to become a musician. One of that was listening to music. Around 15 years ago, I think, I started late in my life actually to compose. I started in my 20s. So it's kind of late. I think most people started earlier that way. But well, I'm a guitarist. Classical guitar is my instrument. And I remember, well, I started I was in undergrad, just playing music, and for some reason I got bored of the things that I was playing, because usually it was the same things. All the people of my generation, usually they were playing the same things, and so I kind of got bored of that, and I started to think, well, maybe I should start writing my own things. I should start making my own music with that. And I realized that I loved that even more than playing. And then it was when I changed like paths. I changed careers, and I dedicated myself to compose music, full time composer at that time. I don't compose with the guitar, because the guitar is it's a very idiomatic instrument. But I try usually to I try ideas with the guitar in that way. So I think in certain way influence, basically with the repertoire especially, because the guitar repertoire is not super canonic in that way. So there's the classics in there, right? There's the important pieces, but I think they have less weight than, for example, piano music or violin music in terms of repertoire. A lot of guitar music, I think it could be more bold, more experimental in certain way. I mean, it depends on the composer, of course, but I think that was something that determined, in certain way, my choice. That is not, this weight of tradition is not, it's not super strong. Another thing, I think that I don't know, the harmonic aspect of the instrument also is something that contributed in certain way to try to hear the things, to hear the voices simultaneously. I think that was something that helped me in my practice as a composer. I'm not saying that this is something unique from the guitar, but I think in my case it's something that contributed. It's hard to write for the guitar if you're not a guitar player.
Sure, sure.
So ask any composer who is not a guitarist. Usually is the case. Usually I start most of the time on the piano keyboard. Again, sometimes I start in the guitar with some ideas, but it's like that. It's like trying out ideas, experimenting with melodies, with harmonies. All the pieces are different. There are pieces in which I start with a motif, with a musical motif, and from there I expand to melodies or to even to sections. Sometimes I start with with chord progressions. Sometimes I start only with texture. So it varies. It varies. It depends of the piece, but usually the first, I don't know, days or even weeks. Sometimes the first week it just improvising the ideas, trying things to see if they could work, if they don't work. I start all the time with paper. It feels that I can embrace the material better in that way. I can absorb the material certainly better if I write them. Then I move to the computer later in the process, but the first part is that. Once I find something that I'm really in love with that idea, with that melody, with that motive, I stick with that, and I try to organize a little bit more the structure of the piece. So there's a lot of questions, like to start to think what I want. If I want how long I want the piece to last, what I want to convey, what the musical material or the musical elements is conveying to me. And from there, a lot of time is interesting because, as I mentioned before, I try to relate that with my life. I try to relate that with what is going on in my environment, or what's been around recently in my environment. Because I believe that music is connected in a direct way with what you experience in a daily basis. I try usually to remember the things, the book I'm reading, or the movies that I watched recently, and just to see if there's a connection with that. Most of the time there's a connection, actually. Most of the times it speaks to me in that way. And then I try to use that as an inspiration to organize the piece.
Yeah.
Just to say, okay, yeah, maybe the piece could use this idea or this kind of concepts, just to elaborate it in musical terms. But that helps to organize the piece. It's hard to tell when to finish the piece. Most of the time, I let the material to lead me until I find like a point that I'm satisfied with the music I have so far, and yeah, and try to go in that direction. But it's usually the material who tells me when the piece should finish. For a composer, we have like some kind of a composer's toolkit, right? In which you just take the things that you need in order to expand with a piece, or to convey the idea that you want in a piece in the most effective way. Sometimes you need to use something more experimental, yeah, to provide or to create the idea that you want to put on paper, or to put on music. Sometimes you need a more traditional approach for that, but that depends. Well, first of all, that depends on the material that you have, where the material sometimes demands this more experimental approach, or this more traditional approach, or sometimes it demands the opposite. But I think it's good to have a balance in both cases, because both has their pros and cons. You don't want to be very predictable, but you want to be surprising, but you also don't want to be very esoteric. I mean, it's in my case, talking in my case, esoteric in that way that it's music that only speaks to you, because usually my music, I want my music to connect with people too. So it's, for me, it's good to have this balance. It's good to try with both things. But at the end, it's like that. It has to be with what you want to do with a piece, how to express the things the idea you have in the best possible way. And well, sometimes you have to be bold, and sometimes you have to play safe, and I think that's a journey of all the time creating a piece. Right now, I'm working in a sextet that is for oboe, clarinet, saxophone, bass clarinet, bassoon, and percussion.
Ooh.
I'm enjoying a lot the piece, because it's the first time I write for this kind of combination.
Oh yeah.
And yes, so much possibilities that you can do for that. It's beautiful. I really love that combination. I'll be on a festival in August in Petoskey, Michigan, in the North Michigan. I'm really excited about that. Actually, the piece I'm writing is for that festival. There will be a video released of that piece eventually. I'll be posting the video in my website and in my social media. And also that I'm really excited about the Solid Ensemble project, about all the piece when it's going to be performed. And it will be a delight to work with an ensemble, they're amazing. And I'm really happy for that. I'm looking forward just to hearing this piece played by them in a very high level.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this interview and want to see more like it, check out the 30x30x30 playlist on our channel. For more information about the 30x30x30 project, check out the website linked to the right.